Mexican gray wolves left in the wild. At the Regenstein Wolf Woods at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, a monumental collaborative effort to save the species is taking place. They have built a unique habitat for the Mexican gray wolf that will help them eventually transition into the wild. Contact with humans is limited to 25% of the exhibit to discourage the wolves from having any positive associations with humans. But there is so much more to this wild exhibit that most people never get to see. Among the wolves' favorite spots are these man-made hills. Although they look natural, the hills are carefully molded by bulldozers to be the perfect height to satisfy the wolves' natural desire to keep an eye on their surroundings.
Wolves, being predators, really enjoy having a nice vista to look for prey. I believe even when they're not hungry, they're probably always still searching for prey. And you'll see them spend a lot of time out here. It gives them a real good panoramic view of the entire exhibit.
Searching and hunting prey is an instinct so strong in these animals that special dens designed to mimic those in the wild were created to encourage this behavior.
Part of being the predator, part of developing your skills, is the play behavior. And the wolves exhibit a lot of play behavior where they stalk each other, chase each other. That den is set up as like a run-through. It's another place they like to ambush each other. And it's really a nice thing.
A nice thing for the people is this special temperature-controlled den attached to the visitor center. It keeps the wolves warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There are one-way mirrors in this den as well that allow the zoo's smallest visitors a chance to get nose-to-nose with these endangered creatures. Other realistic dens give the wolf a much-needed place to hide.
We want someday for them released in the wild. We don't want them to become pets or too domesticated. So by allowing them, if they want to get away from the loud noises of the crowds or whatever, they've got places where they can go behind the mound.
Behind the mound is an elaborate water feature, a cascading stream, 4 pools, man-made beaver dams, and even a constructed wetland. To make sure the water is safe from toxic chemicals, it's tested daily.
Not only do we observe them drinking this water, they like to play in it. And one of the things we have seen is the games of chase, where they literally chase each other through the water.
Of course, not every day is made for frolicking in the water. During the harsh Chicago winters, heated rocks give the wolves a comfortable place to warm up. But keeping the wolves warm isn't the only way the zoo looks after their health. Behind the scenes, Brookfield Zoo is a self-sustaining ecosystem. It has its own generators to back up vital operating systems in a power outage. It has its own food warehouse to carefully document and provide for the wolf's diet. The zoo has its own animal hospital in the unlikely event of an emergency. And a weather forecasting unit to stay one step ahead of the wildly fluctuating Chicago weather. With all these extreme measures in place, it is the hope of all involved that they are leading the Mexican gray wolf down the road to recovery, while allowing visitors a rare glimpse into their wild lives.
Looking at those yellow eyes, looking back at you, that's something that's hard to duplicate anywhere.
You could see better in the camera.
Despite all this special care, the true success of the Regenstein Wolf Woods will only come when 691, 692, 694, 740, and 742 are released into the wilds of Arizona and New Mexico.
Even though in the back of my mind I realize, gee, if he's here in the zoo, he'll live 10, 15 years, nothing will ever happen to him, he'll never be shot, he'll never be possibly attacked by other wolves, he will not be hit by a car, but still the opportunity to think that 694 is somewhere in the Southwest, living like a natural wolf, that's something I want to hang on to.
After years of hunting the Mexican gray wolf to the brink of extinction, man is finally attempting to right this wrong. Thanks to the Regenstein Wolf Woods at the Brookfield Zoo, this endangered predator may once again find its true calling in the wild, making this exhibit a resounding choice for our ultimate zoo. to making this place the coolest polar bear habitat in the world. Then, recreating the African savanna in Calgary pushes the limits of adaptability at this groundbreaking exhibit. Coming up on Ultimate Zoo. Polar bears spend their winters amongst the Arctic pack ice, hunting for seals. Come spring, this habitat will melt, forcing them to migrate south for a summer on the tundras of Siberia, Alaska, and Canada. In zoos, polar bears are one of the most popular species. The only problem, their expansive habitat is also among the most difficult to recreate. In 1996, the Detroit Zoo took on this challenge and created the world's largest and most realistic polar bear habitat ever. Now, Ultimate Zoo shows you how they did it as we go inside Detroit Zoo's Arctic Ring of Life. A champion in polar bear exhibition for over 70 years, Detroit Zoo faced the 90s with a serious problem. If they were to stay on the forefront of polar bear care, they needed to break away from the stark cement dens that pervaded the industry. For Detroit CEO Ron Kagan, the answer was simple. For him, zoos were a place of conservation, education, and animal welfare. He knew when it came to polar bears, it was time to give them a habitat that reflected their true environment.
The history of the Arctic Ring of Life really starts about 6 years ago when we realized it was time for us to make a quantum leap forward in terms of the exhibition and the care of bears. And so what we decided to do was look at how we could invent a whole new way of caring for polar bears.
Only Detroit didn't have just one polar bear to think about. The zoo would be building a habitat for 7, none of which had ever seen the wild. For Ron, it was even more of a reason to give these polar bears the world Mother Nature intended for them. To do this, the first order was an Arctic research expedition.
What we wanted to do was really experience the Arctic, get a feel for what it was like, what the landscapes are like, or the icescapes actually to be more precise, and to be able to bring back some of that core of the Arctic here into Detroit.
What they found were 3 unique habitats: the grassy tundra, the pack ice, and the Arctic Ocean. Ron Kagan and the team would use this research to recreate each habitat in the Arctic Ring of Life. Even in zoos, polar bear males are extremely territorial, so the 3 habitats would allow the zoo to rotate their 2 males into different environments separately, while continually changing the mix of females. The first habitat from the research was the bear's southern environment. In the summer, polar bears lived on the grassy tundra, which fostered an almost vegetarian existence for the bears as they waited for the sea ice to form to hunt for seals. Here, it was designed so the polar bears would be able to forage for food hidden in the tall grasses and caves. And to keep things cool during Detroit's warm summer, automated cooling pads were embedded in the cave's floor and supported by a circulating water system. And to recreate the streams and pools of the wild, they even included a 30,000-gallon freshwater pond. Next was the bear's more traditional pack ice habitat of winter. Designers positioned this adjacent to the tundra, separating it by a carefully concealed 30-foot deep moat. This wintry habitat would offer the bears a crested landscape of simulated pack ice, complete with water runoff that recirculates through the adjoining pool, and even Arctic fog. Like the grassy tundra habitat, there are also automated cooling pads embedded in rocks for the bears to keep cool during the summer. But perhaps most unique of all was the landscape's height. You might notice the habitat towers much higher than the public area. There's a good reason. Scott Carter had been working at Detroit Zoo for 14 years and is currently the Director of Conservation and Animal Welfare. His challenge was to find a way for the exhibit to foster the polar bear's strong sense